So when I first became self-employed, I started reading one book every single week for around about 4 years. So in the space of 4 years, I read over 200 books. So today I'm just going to go over 38 of those books. Now these are in no particular order. These are just the 38 books out of 200 that I rated 5 out of 5 stars. The first book is called The Richest Man in Babylon. This book really helped me get a better sense of my finances, my personal finances, how much I'm saving, how much I'm investing, and really it got me to think more deeply on that topic. Really, am I saving enough money? Am I investing enough money? This is what I got from this book. It guided me towards a path of saving more money and investing more money. And this actually helped me quite a lot a few years later when I heavily invested into the cryptocurrency market. And if it wasn't for this book, possibly I wouldn't have done that and I wouldn't have made a lot of money in cryptocurrency. The second of the 38 books is called Mindset by Carol Dweck. Now in this book, it basically just talks about mindset, how it's so important to your success in life. Basically, you need to control your thinking. You need to think positively. You need to stay focused on your goal, on the goal you want to achieve, and you need to do that in a positive way. Negative thoughts will hold you back. Not focusing mentally on your goal 100% will hold you back. This is basically what this book is about. The third book on my list of 38 books that changed my life is The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt. He is just someone that I really admire in general. He actually started off with quite a hard life, and he didn't let that stop him at all. He just worked on building himself up as much as possible. He became the president of the United States, and he did that by building himself up, by not letting his weaknesses hold him back. That's something I really admire about Theodore Roosevelt, and this biography of Theodore Roosevelt was really interesting. The next two books on the list are Spiritual Enlightenment books by Jed McKenna. So the next book is Spiritual Enlightenment, The Damnedest Thing. I've actually read 3 of Jed McKenna's books, and I think all 3 of them are in my 5 out of 5 ratings. So we might see multiple other Jed McKenna books, and they're all basically about the same thing. It's about spiritual enlightenment, but it's a different type of spiritual enlightenment. Understanding your own thinking, understanding your own beliefs, and understanding how you identify yourself and how those things could be holding you back. How identifying yourself in certain ways could be holding you back. That's the key takeaway I got from this spiritual enlightenment book. So it's not really like any other spiritual type books you might read. It's actually quite practical, and it's basically just a story of this character, Jed McKenna, and how he lives his life being 100% unattached from all these beliefs and labels and ways of thinking that everyone else is attached to. Now, I wouldn't actually recommend going as deep as Jed McKenna goes in these sort of topics, but it is actually good to read this book and just absorb a little bit of it and to become a little bit like the character in this book. It's good to become a little bit less attached to your original beliefs, a little bit less attached to how you identify yourself. It's good to absorb a little bit of that, but I wouldn't recommend going too deep into this topic. So the next book is again by Jed McKenna, Spiritually Incorrect Enlightenment. Basically, it's the same as all his other books. It's the same kind of topic, the same kind of learnings that you can get from these books, but just a different story and told a little bit different way. I prefer to actually listen to audiobooks instead of reading, so I actually recommend listening to the audiobook rather than reading the book. The next book that changed my life is called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Now, this book is basically just about Zen philosophy and living a kind of Zen lifestyle. It's basically just a fictional story of a character who lives his life in a Zen-like way and how that manifests in a really practical sense throughout his life. And I actually found it quite interesting, and it's good to absorb a little bit of these type of topics. The next book on the list that changed my life is Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. This is a biography of Richard Feynman. If you don't know who Richard Feynman is, he's basically one of the most well-known physicists in history, and he helped work on the Manhattan Project and the atomic bomb. And he's incredibly intelligent, and he's actually got a really fun, quirky kind of personality, so this biography was really interesting. The next book that changed my life is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. This book basically just gives you some principles to go on if you want to become a really good salesman. It's set in a period thousands of years ago, which makes the read actually a little bit more interesting, but it's some good insights that were as applicable thousands of years ago as they are applicable today. The next of the 38 books that changed my life is The Power Broker, Robert Moses and the Fall of New York. In this biography, they talk about Robert Moses and how he went from a basic admin type job in New York to having more power than the governor of New York State. He achieved this by controlling more information than anyone else in the state, and he only had a low-level admin type job, but he was able to control so much information that he was able to obtain more power than the governor of New York State. The next book that I recommend is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. This is actually one of the first books that I read, and it probably had one of the biggest impacts on me. It's a fictional story about different ways of living. You can either live on your own terms, work to better the world, work to better yourself, or you can do the opposite. You can focus on the needs of others, and in doing so neglect your own needs, and in doing so make the world a worse place. That is the basic premise premise of the story. Now, of course, it's far more complex than that, and I do actually recommend you just read the book and you'll probably find it really enjoyable. If you like any of the other videos I've made on this channel, probably you'll like most of the books I recommend as well, because we probably share a similar personality, so I recommend you read each of these books. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. The next book on the list is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This is another spiritual book, but it's good to balance your life with these sort of spiritual books. Rather than focusing 100% on personal development, on business, it helps to control your ego so that you don't become too absorbed, too self-absorbed with the things you're pursuing. It helps to balance yourself out, make you more humble, and make you less attached to your personal circumstances, to things you can't control, which is actually quite a useful skill to have in business and in life in general. The next of the 38 books that changed my life is The Art of Learning. This is a book about basically how to learn more effectively, and how this guy actually learned more effectively than other people, and how that enabled him to achieve more success in his life. He was able to master chess and martial arts, which are two very different fields, and he was able to do that by learning more effectively. So this is how he was able to learn more effectively than other people, and how he was able to use that to become more successful than other people. So this is a very useful book to read if you're trying to master anything. The next book is Trump, The Art of the Deal. Now, I don't care what your opinion on Trump is as a person, as a politician. I'm only talking about Trump as a businessman. I like his style, how he goes after deals, how he really goes after what he wants, and how he achieves what he wants. It really gives you an insight into how a billionaire businessman thinks and how he gets things done. So if you want to be highly successful in business, then Trump's books are actually a very good read. The next book is another biography of John D. Rockefeller called Titan. John D. Rockefeller was basically the wealthiest person in the world when he was alive, and he achieved this by being basically ruthless in business and really monopolizing his field. Again, if you want to be highly successful in business, it's interesting and somewhat useful to read these stories of people who have become billionaires, who have become highly successful in business, who became the wealthiest people in the world because of their work ethic, because of how they thought about business. And John D. Rockefeller was basically obsessed with business. He was unstoppable. His work ethic was unstoppable. That's something that I took away from this book. The next book that I rate 5 out of 5 stars is The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. In this book, it basically explains how humans came to be, how we evolved from basically nothing to become the most dominant animal species on this planet. And it explains it in a really simple to understand way, so you can really understand how we actually came from nothing, how we evolved from single cell creatures to the human we are today. It's very interesting, and it explains some of the biases that humans have. Why humans are the way we are is because of the way that we evolved. So if you want to have a better understanding of humans as a whole and how we think and why we are like we are, then make sure to read this book. The next book that I recommend is Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. I actually recommend all of Tony Robbins' content. He has spent decades working on his knowledge, finding out really how to become as successful as you possibly can in life, in every different field. He has spent decades working on this, and his knowledge is really good. If you want to take more control of your life, if you want to have more success in your life, then I recommend any of Tony Robbins' content, but in particular, Awaken the Giant Within. The next book is called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. In this book, it basically talks about how your subconscious mind can actually manifest things in the real world. Now, the examples they give in the book are actually a little bit exaggerated, but there is some truth to the premises behind what they're talking about. We all know that the placebo effect works. Your mind can actually control the health of your body to some extent. And we do actually know the nocebo effect works, which is the opposite of the placebo effect. So we do actually know that your subconscious mind does have some control over your body, over your health, and over the outcomes of your life. But we don't actually know the full extent to which our subconscious controls our life and can manifest things in our life. So this book is an interesting read. It might give you some new ideas about ways you might be holding yourself back in your life, how your subconscious might be holding you back, and how you can use your subconscious to your advantage. The next book is called The Snowball. It's a biography of Warren Buffett and how he started from a young age, basically being obsessed with money, kind of collecting money. He worked odd jobs, he started investing at a young age, and he built the snowball of his wealth. He built it up and built that snowball as big as possible. And how his wealth started just like anyone else's. He started with a paper route, just delivering newspapers, and he saved that money. He started little businesses, and he started saving and investing. The key takeaway from his story is that anyone can achieve the same sort of wealth that Warren Buffett achieved. He started from nothing, but what he did have was a very high intelligence. He had a very high work rate, and he was obsessed with making money. Those are his keys to success. And the last book, number 19, that changed my life, is another book by Donald Trump. This is called Think Big and Kick Ass in Business and Life. This is very similar to all the other books that Trump has put out. It's basically about business, about how he manages his businesses as a billionaire, and it's just interesting to get a bit of insight into how how hard he works, how he goes after deals, how he gets things done, and how he gets what he wants in business. Now again, I don't care what your opinion is on Trump as a politician. I'm only talking about Trump as a businessman. If you're interested in succeeding in business, then I recommend his books. So that is the first 19 books out of 38 that have changed my life in some way. Each book will change your life a little bit, maybe 1%, maybe a tenth of a percent. But when you add these things together, it actually results in a big change in your life. You'll become more successful in business, more successful in life, if you take a little bit of knowledge from all these different sources, from people who are living completely different lives from you. That is what happened to me. All of these books have changed my life in at least some fashion, and I've still got 19 other books to talk about. I'm going to make another video on the remaining 19 books that I also rate 5 out of 5 stars. If you like this content, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.